This is a very good day for New York City. And I want to thank some special guests we have with us, and the fact they're here is further evidence of what a historic day this is. I want to thank the Chancellor of the New York State Board of Regents, Merrill Tisch, and thank you, and the New York State Commissioner of Education, John King. Thank you both for being with us. You're going to hear in a moment from Chancellor Farina, from Michael Mulgrew, the President of the UFT, and from Marty Scheinman, who is the arbitrator and the chair of the fact-finding panel. I'll have something to say about each of them, expressing my appreciation as I introduce them. I want to also thank some folks who really exemplified what public service is in this city. The taxpayers definitely got their money's worth when it came to our colleagues who worked long and hard to bring this day about, starting with our first Deputy Mayor, Tony Shoris, our Deputy Mayor, Richard Bury, our Budget Director, Dean Foulahan, and then two men who worked so hard, in particular, on the labor negotiations over these last 4 months. Bob Lynn, our Commissioner of Labor Relations, and Stan Brezhnev, who served as a senior advisor to the first Deputy Mayor throughout this process. Where is Stan when you need him?
Stan's over there.
Stan, you're supposed to stand there, Stan. All right, you screwed up the whole pattern here. And to all of my colleagues in the city government I just mentioned, I just want to say a profound thank you. When we started out down this road, people said to me repeatedly back during the transition that the connection between the first deputy mayor and all of the deputy mayors with the budget director and the labor relations commissioner really frames the ability to achieve great things. And we had extraordinary teamwork from this group of leaders, and we had additionally the wisdom of Stan Brezhnev, who has played such a crucial role in the history of this city government. I can't thank you guys enough. I just want to have a moment. I might tear up at some point in my appreciation for what you did and the extraordinary achievement that you brought to the people in New York City. It's a historic day because it is, first and foremost, a great day for children and for families. This agreement will be a gateway to great progress in our school system. And that is the most important fact here today. It is also a great day for our educators who have worked so hard for so long, who have kept working despite the frustration of not having a contract over these last 5 years. I want to emphasize that is not a fun and easy thing to do. But despite it all, our educators stood by their posts, stayed firm in their focus on our children. So yes, we have reached a landmark agreement for our school teachers, but first and foremost, a landmark agreement for our children and families. And the last 5 years engendered such frustration, a logjam that seemed so often intractable and so wrong and so unnecessary with so much rancor, and one that I know the members of the UFT deeply wanted to move past so they could get on with the important work they do. And what we've achieved here is not only the end of a stalemate, the settling of such important issues, the beginning of a time of stability. We've also set forward on the path of reform, introducing an array of crucial reforms that position the New York City schools to succeed in the 21st century. Reforms in teaching methods, reforms in parental involvement, reforms in rewarding good teachers, and moving out those who belong in a different profession. And today represents a great victory for the taxpayers of this city, because this agreement is entirely funded within the city's current budget framework. And it is funded because working together Working together, we identified significant healthcare cost savings, the kinds of savings that have been talked about for years but never achieved until this group of individuals got together and found common ground. This is a huge breakthrough for the people of New York City. Over 100,000 educators have labored without a contract since 2009. We all knew that had to end. We all wanted it to end as quickly as possible, and yet we knew we faced a host of complicated issues. And we knew that when we succeeded in finding common ground, we wanted a period of stability to heal our school systems and move it forward. Our agreement covers 9 years, so it means we will have the stability to help this school system improve fundamentally. And I've said many times, I don't accept the status quo in this town when it comes to education. And to really achieve a greater reset, we needed a contract like this that gave us a strong platform for change, and today we've achieved it. We knew from the start, like all negotiations, a lot of the discussion would be about salaries and benefits, but we also knew that this would be a rare opportunity, a priceless opportunity to reimagine what our schools should look like. And in the negotiations, what became very clear is all involved agreed that New York City needs to think in new and fresh ways about education and act in different ways if we want to achieve fundamentally better results for our children. That's why we have agreed to a plan for fostering innovation that will relax Department of Education and union rules at up to 200 schools. So these schools can reinvent themselves on everything from teaching methods to the timing of the school day. Eventually, as much as 10% of our entire school system will be freed up in this manner. We all agreed on the crucial importance of greater parental involvement. I say this as a public school parent myself. I have spoken for so long about my frustrations, shared by so many parents, that we weren't focusing on what parents could do to improve the education of their children. We weren't focusing on how to bring parents more deeply and strategically into the school system as true partners. For too long, parents felt shunted aside. In this agreement, parents are treated as the crucial partners they need to be. We redrew school schedules to increase the number of parent-teacher conferences and the amount of parent engagement time. This will represent a huge step forward to creating a true and consistent bond between every parent in this city and the teachers who serve their children. It's not a surprise that we also agreed on the importance of addressing inequality in this city and ensuring that our schools do more to close the city's obvious and painful opportunity gap. And that's why we are providing new incentives to quality teachers to use their talents in underserved communities. All of this reflects our understanding that things are changing very quickly around us in this world. We're living in a new knowledge age in which innovation, new technologies, and new ideas drive the economy. And that reality is the key to the future of our children, to their possibilities of achieving good jobs and bright futures. Our school system has to reflect that reality. Our school system has to keep up with the times and be there to give our children that strong foundation. Took a huge step forward, achieving the plan for pre-K and after school. We take a huge step forward now again today, creating a platform for a stronger school system with a more innovative approach. I've said before, but I want to say it again. Education determines economic destiny in this time more than at any time in previous human history. The people standing around me hold the future of this city in their hands because they are helping us to determine how to have the very best school system possible. That understanding that our schools will determine our future, that our educators are amongst the most important members of our society, that we need to get it right this time. That animated this agreement. It created urgency. It created a pathway to understanding and cooperation. And I have to say, the respect and cooperation that was consistent in this process was extraordinary. It was moving. It is the reason we are standing here today. So this is an extraordinary day for our teachers, an extraordinary day for our children, an extraordinary day for our parents, and a day that will literally frame the future of education in New York City for the better. Before I call upon my colleagues, just a couple of sentences en español. El anuncio de hoy es más que un acuerdo laboral responsable y respetuoso. Este acuerdo contiene importantes reformas para crear un sistema de escuelas públicas mejor y más innovador para todos los niños de la ciudad de Nueva York. With that, I want to say I know in my heart, I know 100% that this agreement would not have been possible if we didn't have a chancellor who was part of it every step along the way, who engenders such respect from the men and women who serve under her command, who has such a keen understanding of our schools and where our schools need to go to be better for the future. Carmen Farina won the respect of her troops from the beginning. And when she said, here are ways we can work together, heal the wounds, move forward, people believed her. They knew it was true. They knew she was speaking from the heart. This agreement is a testament to what she is already achieving as our school's chancellor. Carmen Farina.
Thank you. I have been smiling for the last 24 hours. And I have to say that a lot of the things that are in this contract are things I wished for, dreamed about, and never thought I'd see happen. So I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to be here today and be able to be a little bit more specific about what I think we've accomplished that is really earth-shattering. One of the things that Michael and I agreed is that we'd hug each other in public. Because a system always works better when the people involved in it actually talk to each other, meet with each other, and really bring that mutual respect to the table. So what's not possible is possible. So as a former teacher, principal, superintendent, deputy chancellor, everything in this contract is a living document of all the things I either did at some point in my life or wish I could do but wasn't allowed to do. So I want to be very specific about where I think this is really monumental. First and foremost, I hold professional development dear to everything I believe in. We cannot hold teachers accountable to do things if we haven't supported them and sort of helped them get it done right. So to the degree that we now have embedded in the contract anywhere from 75 to 80 minutes per week where teachers will come to the table and help write their own curriculum, discuss the best things to do in their classroom, this is unbelievable. And to me, this is also going to change the dynamics in a school from what they're doing to me to what I can do for myself. And I think the kind of development we want to see in professional development is how do we now go back and look at the Common Core and make sure that it's worked so that every teacher says, I get it, I understand, this is what I need to do. And also that teachers who already have done it right can help other teachers get it better. This is a peer-to-peer, teacher-to-teacher, and it really is, to me, a dream come true. I remember when I tried to do this as a principal and I had to go behind people's backs to get it signed, and I was the only superintendent who got it done in the city of New York, and it's because I cheated a little bit. But I don't encourage people to cheat, I just want you to know. The other piece that's important, it's true, you know that, Michael, is that, parents are not just there to go to PTA meetings. Parents are there to learn how to help their children, but for many of our parents, helping their children is also something that is difficult because of their work schedules and whatever. So we now have, in every single week, 40 minutes devoted to teachers talking to parents for a whole year, 40 minutes every week. And that means that, for example, some of the concerns I'm hearing citywide, and I know, Merrill, you're going to love this, I didn't know that about my child's IEP. We can actually schedule a whole year's worth of things to do every month specific to that month. So September, it might mean that teachers talk to the parents about the kids' IEPs. We might have new immigrants coming to talk about how to help their child at home. But it's a consistent, across-the-board relationship between parents and teachers. Also, for a change, you can actually schedule an appointment and see your teacher over a period of time so that every parent will have more interface with the teachers, but in a very dignified way, not waiting on the line, waiting when your turn comes and the teacher says, and who is your child? By appointment, respectfully, and really targeted. We now are going to have over 200 schools over a period of time that can decide how they want to represent themselves and how they want to do things different. We have a lot of schools doing things differently, but now it's going to be how do you do it, and how do you do it in a way that you add value to the system. If you're doing something totally different and it works, how do you open your doors and share it with other people? And how do we make sure that we're all learning from each other, almost like laboratory schools, in ways that make sense so that we can all learn from each other. You're going to love this. I love this one. I love them all, but I love this one. The teacher evaluation process was never a bad idea, but I think asking teachers and principals to get good about 22 things all simultaneously is a bit overwhelming. So we've streamlined the teacher evaluation from 22 competencies to 8, with the very clear idea that as you do professional development, you figure out how those 8 need to be taught and administered, and that also a principal can literally walk their building and be looking for these 8 and not have an excessive amount of paperwork. And maybe by next year it'll be a different 8, but right now, if we're all on the same page and school to school, these are the ones we're working on, we're going to raise student achievement in ways we've never been able to do before because everybody's out doing their own thing. These 8 are going to be the mantras that we live by, and even when we look at professional development from Tweed, it's going to be the ones we focus on. So I'm really excited about that one. In the hard to staff schools, we're looking to recruit and retain. Retaining is a big issue, as well as recruiting, and we want to make sure that teachers who come in and who we're going to support on my staff, in some of the schools, every staff member is being asked to adopt one school that they will visit over time. This is not about living at Tweed. Not that you ever really want to live at Tweed, but if you live at Tweed, you have to go into the field, and you have to figure out your responsibility to help those schools that are struggling. And to that point, then also how do we make sure that these schools and the people who are doing extraordinary work are also given some compensation for the work that they're doing. We're going to be creating a number of different ways of looking at teachers who add value to the system. We started something called Learning Partners, and Learning Partners are schools that we select because there's a passionate commitment on part of the staff. And how do these teachers open their doors to teachers from other schools, not just their own school, but from other schools? And we've already started this process, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting. I think also we have to make sure that teachers who are in the ATR pool, also there are some who are very good and really need to be respected for what they've done. They may be there for any number of reasons, but the ones that may not be have a more expedited process for, as you put it very nicely, finding other jobs, other careers. And I have to tell you that I cannot tell you how much I respect the people, the negotiators from my team and Michael's team for understanding that our only purpose in the negotiations was to make this a better system for our students. Everything we've done is through the lenses of how do we increase student achievement, because every child in New York City deserves the best education possible. So I'm going to be living on this for a couple of weeks, I think, smiling, before we go to the next labor negotiations. But the reality is we have done something historic. We've collaborated.
Yes, we have.
We have communicated.
Yes, we have.
And now we're going to celebrate.
A little bit. We got work to do.
Okay.
That's right.
But thank you.
Thank you. So we're talking about what was an incredibly complex, time-consuming process. And to achieve something like this, you need someone who brings all the players together constructively and creatively. And Marty Scheinman, as the chair of this arbitration process, did an extraordinary job. Someone that has been admired in this town for a long time for his ability to help everyone think together, find common ground, see possibilities they didn't see before. I think that as soon as we finish this press conference, I might suggest that Marty be dispatched to the Ukraine immediately. But the fact is, a real honest broker makes things happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise, and we had that in this process. And Marty Scheinman, please come up.
I'm going to be very brief. First of all, this wasn't alone. This was a three-person panel. My colleague, Howard Edelman, who's here, who did an extraordinary job, and my other colleague, Mark Grossman, who's in Boston, who says he never wants to come back to New York again. The only point I wanted to make is that, when you take on an assignment like this, everybody tells you you're crazy because these are inscrutable issues with parties that are never going to talk, that they're never going to get along, they're never going to cooperate, that they have all hidden agendas, and there's no possibility to do this. And the truth was that's not true. My colleagues here, who were too many to mention, from both the DOE and the UFT, spent hours and hours and hours on trying to figure out solutions to things that people told us, and I've heard my whole life, were not possible. I am a product of the New York City schools. And so as a result, it is particularly rewarding to watch that this is just the beginning of a whole new way of looking at problems and a whole new way of looking at each other. And so they're not going to need honest brokers very often any longer. In fact, we put ourselves out of business because they're going to be able to say that really this is the first step in figuring out how to do something. When you put a 9-year contract together, by definition, you'd have to be silly not to think that as time goes on, there's not going to be more issues to talk about, and there's not going to be nuances, and not to be rethinking things that you think in one moment and at 4 o'clock in the morning were a good idea, that maybe next time at 10 o'clock in the morning it feels different. And what all I'm going to say to the mayor, to Michael, to the chancellor, and to everybody we worked on this, I've done this a very long time. This is one of the most proud moments I have in what I do for a living. I'm a little even choked up about it because I think these parties everybody told me they couldn't do it, and they did it. So thank you very much, and congratulations.
It is no surprise that people can communicate and think together if they have some commonality. You heard that Marty's a product of New York City public schools. Carmen is the ultimate New York City public school teacher who rose up all the way to chancellor. Michael, a New York City public school teacher who rose up to the level of president of the UFT. I have a special honor. I am a New York City public school parent. My 2 children having benefited and grown in our New York City public schools throughout their lives. So we speak a common language. We believe in our school system. We love our school system. We love the people who are part of it. Most especially, we love our children. And we know our schools have to work for our children. Michael and I started working together years ago. And we found common ground back then, working on issues of childcare. We got to know each other more, working on issues of career and technical education, the field that Michael taught in. And through all the months and years, we kept talking about education. We kept talking about the changes that had to be made, kept talking about what a different school system would look like. And I just have to thank him for being an extraordinary partner in this process. He is first and foremost a teacher. And if you spend any time at all with Michael, you hear him immediately start to reminisce about the kids he taught, the changes and growth he saw in them, those victories when you got through to a kid and made a difference. That's what animates him. And I know as we went through this process, I had a fundamental faith that we were all ultimately trying to get to the same place. But I want to thank Michael and his entire team for the atmosphere of partnership and respect that they helped to create, that took very, very complicated things and started to make them achievable. So this is what partnership and cooperation looks like. This is what respect engenders. Respectful relationship allows us to get to the results that our people deserve. With that, it's my honor to introduce Michael Mulgrew, the president of UFT.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm shocked that Marty Scheinman was choked up after all those days we just spent together. I stand before you today saying that to the 100,000 people, over 100,000 people who are covered by this agreement. You have dedicated your lives to making a difference in children's lives, and now you truly will have the opportunity to do the job the way you have always wanted to do it, because New York City is, for the first time in a long time, truly in the educational reform mode, and I can't thank the mayor enough for allowing this, and Chancellor Farina. I call this the contract for education. Yes, the teachers and the educators of New York City have gone a long time without getting any proper respect. That changed with the changing of the administration. But there were some tough issues that had to be dealt with. The mayor, true to his word, said, all the challenges that this city faces, we can solve just by bringing people together and using common ground and respect as the basis for all of our discussions. And I am so happy that he held to his word, because that is why we are here today. We solved challenges that so many people said could not be solved, the economic challenges. We were creative, we were smart, we were respectful, and teachers now have a fair deal moving forward. But more importantly, for myself as an educator, something that I've always wanted to do as Carmen, both of us being teachers from Brooklyn, something I've always wanted to do is to create opportunity for schools, school communities, parents, teachers to work together, because my belief has always been that the solution to great education exists in each and every school right now. We just needed to create a platform and an environment for them to be able to do what they have dedicated their lives to do, which is helping children learn. And we now have that opportunity, and I can't thank the city and the chancellor enough. In terms of the actual negotiations, I think the part that myself and the chancellor were more excited about were the pros schools. The idea that you can create this avenue where there is real trust. And we wanted the schools in this city because we have hundreds of great schools in this city who do things out on their own. I wouldn't call it the word you used. They figure out tough things all on their own. But nobody gets to talk about it because they're doing it in their own way, is the nicest way to say it. We wanted to create a program that says, if you want to do things differently, if there is true respect and collaboration, then we know you can teach so many other schools what education can be and should be. And that program is something I can't wait to get started. But more importantly, to the teams who worked on this for the very long nights, thank you for all you've done. To the chancellor for being an educator. It's much easier negotiating educational issues with someone who has actually spent time in the classroom. I tell you, that is a big plus. And to the mayor for standing by his word, saying we will face every challenge together and we will all work together on behalf of the city. That is what we have done here today, and I thank you all very, very much.
Let me say, be a good time for Tony Shoris and Dean Foulahan and Bob Lynn to gather around, because I'm sure some of the questions will be best answered by them. I also want to say I waxed eloquent and from the heart about what they all did in this process. I think Chancellor Farina's team did an extraordinary job, and I think it is no accident that when you have deputy chancellors who also were educators in the New York City public schools, that they understood so much of what had to happen and played a crucial role in getting us to this day as well. So thank you very, very much. We are going to take questions on this topic only, And I just want to make one personal comment that I thought during the first 100 days of this administration, I thought it was a fast pace, it was intense. I think you're rarely going to see more intensity than these next few days. With this agreement today, with the affordable housing plan being announced Monday, with the executive budget being announced Thursday, buckle your seatbelts. This is going to be a very intense time, and a time that's going to say a lot about the future of New York City. So my colleagues are gathered around. Dean, you have to come closer. That's right. So with that, again, we're going to be on this topic only. Dave.
Mayor, first of all, the reform that you talked about and the chancellor talked about with teacher evaluations, what was the significance difference between now and, let's say, a year ago when it was such a contentious topic? And what is an example of going from 22 areas where they're evaluated now to 8, as you mentioned, Chancellor?
Well, I just want to start by saying both of those points get back to, I think, common sense changes that were needed, that were achievable when you brought down the volume, got everyone into a respectful stance in a private place where we could think together. Reducing the paperwork burden on our principals and our teachers so they can do the work they're there to do makes all the sense in the world. Creating an evaluation process that actually references the work people do, the most fundamental work they do, rather than extraneous issues, and does it in a way that makes sense to people in their everyday work. So it's not a drag on their work, but something that complements their work. That's what animated this process. So I think we all approach this from the perspective of life as it's lived in our schools, starting with what our kids needed and what our parents needed, but also just looking at everyday life. And the chancellor in particular said, as a former principal, remember, she brings multiple identities to this, teacher, principal, and understanding of every step along the way. She was the first to say there is a simpler way of doing this that will allow us to focus on the thing we really need to focus on, which is continually improving the work of our teachers. So a lot less paperwork, a lot less confusion, a lot more focus on teacher training. Please. Sorry.
I think the important thing is which 8 we chose, and choosing the ones that are going to really improve student achievement was very crucial. And also, so we can align
What's an example of that?
the professional, well, certainly differentiation, planning, assessment. These are all that we hold dear and that we really want to see being done, but also that we can then align to the Common Core and make sure that our professional development is aligned to it. That doesn't mean we're never, ever going to increase to more numbers, but we need to get some fundamentally right first so people can build on that foundation. So that was really one of the reasons why we went in this direction and spent a very long time also rethinking which were the 8 ones to do, and I'll be happy to send some of that information out later.
And I'm going to, just as a ground rule, I'm going to start some of the answers, but I'm going to welcome my colleagues, in particular Bob Lynn, who labored night and day to get this done, and I think has the most detail on all that was achieved, because so much of this is his handiwork. Sally.
Could you or Mr. Lynn tell us how much the total 9-year contract cost, also how much the retro cost, and some specifics on how, I know you said all of the money is in the current budget through savings. Can you give us some specifics on how it's going to be paid for?
Yeah, let's get Dean and Bob both to come up. They don't need that, you're right. I'm used to, I thought, once I go for one.
Let me describe the structure of the deal for a moment. This is a 9-year package that averages about 2% a year over 9 years. Out of that 18% over 9 years, we have restructured the 2 4% increases in a way that we could afford, and we have achieved substantial health care savings. So I think that overall, it's important to note that the 18% is brought down by about 4% of health care savings, and we have taken care of a number of issues, especially the issues of the collective bargaining increases that 150,000 workers didn't get, the 200,000 others, and we're able to fit that within an economic package that we could afford.
Numbers, though, on how much it costs?
You want to do the net and gross, or Dean, do you want to? Let's let Dean do that.
Okay.
So, once again, Bob outlined really the important component of that, which is over the 9 years, it's an average annual increase of 2%. That's the important component. The net cost of this for the 14 through 18 period, the net cost is $4 billion. However, what we'll delineate to you actually in the financial plan next week, actually a week from today, will be a little less than that, and we'll give you exactly more detail on the savings and how this annually breaks out when we do the executive budget presentation next week.
So just because that $4 billion counts retro, and that's the full cost, correct?
That is the full cost over that period.
I just want to emphasize, again, we'll have over the next day or two, we'll be able to fill in a lot more of the blanks. But I just want to emphasize again, the spirit of cooperation. There was obviously a need to address healthcare costs in general in this city budget, and there was an absolute respectful, smart approach where everyone looked together at ways to get at that challenge and do it in a cooperative fashion. And I think that's one of the really profound realities of this plan, is it helps us address the long-term fiscal health of the city while making sure we continue to improve our schools. Pending MLC approval is exactly right, because this, again, I want to emphasize, and thank you for making that point. This is, the agreement that we have reached through the negotiating process. There is a ratification process within the UFT. Separately, the Municipal Labor Council is going to have a consideration of this plan. It has its own separate process, first with its leadership and then with its member unions, of going through a process of approval. So I want to emphasize, we're speaking from the position of the achievement that's been done already getting to this point. But we know that there's other approvals that have to happen going forward. Marcia.
Mr. Mayor, I want to talk to you about the 200 schools that are going to be free to do whatever plan they want to, depending on approval. It seems to me that it's very similar to what charter schools are doing, in that they could have a longer day, a longer year, a different curriculum. What exactly are you expecting from them, and what are you expecting them to teach other schools?
I'm going to start and then let Carmen and Michael jump in. Look, I can tell you as a parent, spoken to so many teachers over the years, and also as a public servant, so many teachers in this city are not only deeply committed to their work, they have great ideas for how to keep improving their schools. So many principals have great ideas. And what this says is, if you get agreement at the school level for innovation, it may be about the school day and how it's laid out, or the length of the day, or the progression of the day, or any number of other factors. The last thing that should happen is to have either chancellor's regulations or UFT work rules stand in the way of innovation that everyone agrees on. And every school is different. Every school is its own community. So in certain schools, one set of reforms might work very well. In other schools, a different set of reforms. So this is really about respecting the people who do the work, the teachers and the principals who are yearning in so many cases to make the kind of improvements that they understand from their own everyday work. And we want to give them that right. And I think what it's going to mean is our school system will take a really strong step forward. And then the innovations that come out of that will be shared consistently. And it's something we're committed to, and we know it will be easy because everyone is part of the same school system. It will be easy to take something that works in one school and quickly share it with other schools. So it's both to make the individual schools that are part of this effort more effective, but also to come up with models that can be shared effectively across the system.
Question is because there have been a number of educators, including Marty Duncan, who have said that a longer school day is something that would improve education nationwide. And I'm wondering if this is sort of a first step.
I think take this for what it is. It's giving each school a way of figuring out what works for it. We've talked about the value of extended learning for example, through our after-school program. And that's one of the things we'll achieve with after-school programs for middle school kids. But this is about each school figuring out what works for it. Let me let Michael jump in. I'm not doing that. Okay.
For years, we've had an option in our contracts called a school-based option, where a school could change its contractual configuration for a school year. And we also have a lot of schools doing experimental things out on their own. We already have a school that goes to school throughout the entire year. It's 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. We have a school who's working under an SBO to do that inside of New York City. What we wanted to do together was to say, we want this process, want more schools involved with this process where there is truly trust. We want to tell them it's okay to experiment, to do things differently. And if there is trust at that school building, let's move forward with it. So since we already had a provision that allowed this, we said, how do we bring it to scale and really amp up hundreds of schools to do this type of innovation, which we can learn from? And let the schools that have already done a lot of this work quietly, where they've designed their own curricula around arts education that enhances students. We know that the answers to education, to really on making New York City what we want, the greatest school system in the country, resides in our school communities. So we're telling the school communities now, it's okay to experiment. We will be there to help you facilitate this. Come up with a plan, and we're here to help and support what you want to do. But it has to be based on real things that are going to help the school. The days of people saying, oh, a longer school day, our answer was always, what for? What are you going to do differently that's going to make a difference in student achievement? The days of political ideology pushing ideas not based on educational research are gone. We have to do things based on what is in the best interest of children and their achievement, and that's what we're hoping to do through this program.
And I think what I'd like to add here.
I can't even see you.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes that's okay.
I'm sorry.
See, Michael, now roll.
Yeah, thank you.
We got to get our progression right.
I think I agree with what Michael said, but I want to be very clear that this is not going to happen overnight. This is going to be over a period of years. There's going to be a committee that's comprised, lo and behold, of the DOE and the UFT working together to look at the applications, to decide what works, and also to make sure there's enough of a variety. So let's say one of the schools, which would be my personal, if I could start a school today, that would take social studies as the heart of everything and basically teach almost everything through that, and begin the school day maybe a little later because kids don't necessarily wake up all at the same time, and really look at how we use time. Time doesn't mean adding another hour. It means how do you use the time that you have more effectively. So I think it's about how do you experiment with support and with some direction and then evaluate. This is not something you can do anything you want and then you're left out there in the cyberspace, but how do you evaluate this in a year by year to make sure that you're raising student achievement, which is our end goal in everything.
I want to suggest to the chancellor that you could hire a consultant to help you think about that concept of starting the school day later. There's a young man, Bill de Blasio, who would like to help you, believes strongly in that philosophy. Grace?
Can we get some more details about the healthcare savings? Where that savings will come from, and whether union members are paying any more into their healthcare plans?
So we negotiated a deal that agrees that over the 4 years going forward, fiscal years 15, 16, 17, and 18, we will reach savings in healthcare of specific targets. Those targets are, if it's applied citywide, which we hope it will be, it would save $400 million in the first year, and that's in fiscal 15, then 700, then $1 billion, and 1.3 billion. We have agreed to a set of objectives that we think that make sense. We've agreed that the union will have a set of objectives that make sense. And we will work collaboratively to work out how we hit those targets. And we feel certain that those targets are achievable. And my guess is we will at least hit them, if not go beyond them. We think there are menus that we could put together that don't involve shifting costs to employees, but to provide a much more efficient and effective health program.
And just want Dean to talk about the overall budget impact.
So it's $3.4 billion from 2015 through 2018 is the total effect of this. And then, let's be honest, obviously, these reforms and the procedures we agree to will continue after that period. And so it is an attempt on the delivery of health care to find cost savings. It's actually what the mayor articulated from the very beginning of these negotiations, and we talked about in the preliminary budget, and to do it in a way that maintains and the delivery of services to the employees. So there are ways of doing that. There's a whole menu, and we're very confident about making those savings.
Can I just jump in, please? And this is pending MLC approval, but there's an agreement here that there will be a joint working committee, which we've never had before. We've had technical committees for healthcare, but if this is approved, there will be a joint working committee, Labor Management Healthcare Committee. Before, what we would have is the city would come in and say, it costs this. We would say, no, it doesn't. You're wrong. The number's not right. It would be a big skirmish. But the mayor said, this is in all of our interest. Let's set up a transparent, fair committee where everybody is working for the better delivery of health care at the best price for the people in New York City. That's why we are supporting this, because it's that willingness to say, let's be transparent and work together to figure out how to make these things happen.
Richard.
Question for Mike Mulgrew. Several labor leaders whose unions had already gotten 4% raises from Mayor Bloomberg have said that you satisfied a need by getting those 2 4s up front plus the retro, but that for them, they're looking at a potential pattern that would give them only 10% over 7 years. They're saying it's not enough for them, it's not going to keep pace with inflation. How do you convince them that this is a deal that they should not look to detonate as your members prepare to ratify?
Well, talk to them in a couple of days after I talk to them. How's that?
Yes.
Regarding the absent teacher reserve, how is continuing the practice of mutual consent hiring going to thin the ranks of that pool when, after all, ending bumping helped contribute to it, and under this plan, the teachers would not have a right to choose their position automatically if they have seniority?
I'll let everyone around me describe the mechanics. I want you to know that the philosophy that will be implemented is exactly what I said in the beginning. Capable teachers who ended up in that pool for reasons that had nothing to do with them will have opportunity. People who need to go on to a different profession will be moved along to a different profession. That's what you're going to see happen here in a pretty clear, consistent manner. But who wants to, Bob, you want to fill in?
I'll say one thing. I think this is almost an empirical question. There are currently about 1,200 people in the ATR. We believe we've come up with a mechanism that will dramatically reduce those numbers. And we'll see. We think that there's a whole host of things that are excellent for placing people who should be placed, for giving opportunity for those who should be given opportunity, but that the ultimate test will be how we come out from this, and we believe there'll be substantial reductions. Do you want to feel free? Go ahead. See?
I want to say this loudly and repetitively. There will be no forced placement, because it seems that some people don't hear me, so I'm going to say it again. No forced placement.
That's her teacher voice, just
And,
so you
and the
know.
reality is that we have already started doing an interview process where we interview first, and if we think these are people who either because their schools were closed or any number of other things, we then send them out for interviews, and if we feel they're not ready, we don't send them out for interviews. So we anticipate that there's going to be that process. There's also another process where if they go visit a school and the principal says, okay, I'll try her out, but after a day I don't want her, it's gone. So there is a really different process for this, but I think I really want to say publicly that ATRs don't all fit one mode. There are some who are there for no reason of their own, basically, and there are others who should have other careers. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks.
Michael.
Mr. Mayor, I was hoping to get some more details on the healthcare savings. To follow up on Grace's question, could we get just a few examples of what you're talking about? Secondly, I heard something about a committee being formed to talk about these menu of options. Does that mean that there is no agreement on exactly what these healthcare savings are?
As Bob comes up, first of all, Michael makes the right point that everything has to go through the ratification process. But we are very confident of achieving these savings. That's the simplest way I can say it to you. We've offered a menu, and we're very confident we're going to achieve them. But you can give a couple examples of types of savings.
I'll give you a couple examples, and one more general point, if I could. People have said for decades that we should address health care and we should bring down costs. We have done that this time. We have come up with a process that says, we've identified way beyond the targets that we're looking for with things like more effective delivery of health care that would include perhaps radiology and blood work done centrally and not in a doctor's office, central purchasing of prescription drugs, centers of excellence for providing services. We have a list that is long, a list that identified a substantial number of dollars beyond what we're looking for, and we're looking to the unions to come up also. And they've given us in our bargaining suggestions of methods of how, whether we self-insure or whether we have minimum premiums, all sorts of items that together we think are certain that we will achieve the targets and will go beyond the targets.
MLC does not approve of this proposal, this package. Does that mess with the UFTs?
I'm interrupting on purpose. Yeah, the MLC is going through its process. We respect that that is a separate process. We also feel very hopeful that that will be a positive process in terms of approval of this model. So I'm not going to get into a hypothetical of what will happen. I think at this point there's a lot of respect for this proposal at the MLC, but we'll wait for them to take their vote. Michael.
I just had a question for Mr. Fullahan to clarify a figure you'd mentioned. You said the net cost for this through 18 was $4 billion. Part of the retroactive pay will be dispersed in 19 and 20. What is the cost including those payments?
We'll give you the exact numbers on those. I'll come back. What I was giving you was the period through, which is the majority of it, was the period through from 14 through 18. So I'll come back to you on what potential may be in the out years. Obviously, that's not. Yeah, I'll get you.
By getting rid of time that was dedicated to tutoring for academically struggling students, and if I have this right, repurposing it for professional development and for parent time, is that a statement on values of those two reforms over more instructional time for these types of students?
Well, I'll start and then let Carmen come in. Look, I think I said this rather clearly over the last year. We're going to have a heavy focus on teacher training and retaining quality teachers. We're going to have a heavy focus on strategically engaging parents. I've often felt, as a parent, as a public servant who's worked on education issues, that the greatest value added that we're not tapping into is the energies of parents as partners in the education process. We do not have a strategy. The City of New York, over years, hasn't had a strategy for addressing that. There's not a coherent way right now, under the previous model, of reaching parents consistently, giving them a clear understanding of what they could do best to work with us to help their kids, and creating truly engaging ways of bringing parents in. Because what we had 2 parent-teacher conferences a year that were very, very brief, kind of drive-by. I can tell you I went to a lot of them. I saw myself. It was very frustrating to parents, but that's the way the system was structured. We're now adding parent-teacher conferences, adding time to parent-teacher conferences, and creating a weekly dynamic where parents have the opportunity to engage teachers and vice versa, to begin a strategic engagement with parents. So those are both absolutely statements of values and priorities. We also think that this is good quality use of the time. And we wanted to make sure the time was going to be used for the highest value, highest multiplier effect, and that's what we thought could be achieved. Wait. Hold on.
Well, let me complete the answer, because there is a third afternoon that is actually, if principals want to use it, for continuing to work with students that are struggling in ways that make sense. So we're not getting rid of it. We're just saying there are other things that also need to be done. And the other thing that you should know is I visited schools. One of the real things that struck me is that principal after principal after principal said, if you can embed PD, I can save anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. I had a middle school who told me they're spending $125,000 in per session to ensure that their teachers rewrote the curriculum or did PD. So our other hope is that by not making principals having to put this in the budget, that if they have that same amount of money, they can repurpose it for anything they want, be it to work tutoring or to do Saturday classes. I'm going to a Saturday class this Saturday to see what some school is doing in Queens, which they say is remarkable. So they will have cost savings that they can then use at their discretion, including buying more books if that's what they want to do. So this had several purposes, and that was one of the big ones. Michael?
Hold on, Michael's going to jump in, then you're next. Hold on, let Michael speak to it.
We have said, and many of you have written on the fact that we have a new Common Core standards. There has been very little training on this. We also want to be able to engage parents in a more meaningful way, as well as, because education is becoming more and more complicated, have time to do new professional responsibilities. So under your construct, under the old system, we would have tutoring, which was great, except the teachers of New York City still haven't been trained in the Common Core. So we have to train teachers so that the time they're spending with students is much more effective and valuable versus doing, once again, this political punchline, more time with the student. Let's make it better time with the student. That is the goal we are trying to achieve.
Mr. Malbrough, please again. If you don't mind elaborating the key differences between this agreement and proposals made by the Bloomberg administration.
Are you serious? Serious?
small bikes. Give her small.
That's a teacher. It just starts right there. This is a mayor who actually respects the workforce and says they do a great job, we have to be respectful. But more importantly, in terms of the thing I hold dearest here, which is education, we're talking about ideas that are based on what makes sense inside of a classroom versus what makes sense in a soundbite in a political atmosphere. That is the major difference. A respect being brought forward that we understand we have over 100,000 employees who are dedicating their lives to children. That's what they want to do. And we want to make sure that we can support the work that they're doing based off of ideas that are proven to be successful, not based off of your own political needs. And that's the nicest way I'm going to say it.
What about the terms themselves? Any particulars as far as financials are concerned?
I'll let you deal with that.
Well, I just want to say, in this agreement, well over $1 billion in health care savings. If agreed to across the board by the MLC, the potential of over $3.4 billion in health care savings over the course of the next 4 years. From my point of view, that was only reachable in a spirit of respect and cooperation. So some people look at these situations and think that a word like respect is kind of a fluffy concept. I think it's a very material concept. I think it is about if you actually want to have a partnership and people believe mutually through experience that a partnership exists and can deepen over time, then big things happen. So for the taxpayers of this city, this partnership is going to have a very big material impact for their lives. It would not have been possible if some of the rancor of the past had continued. That wasn't getting us anywhere. This is what's actually allowing us to do something for our people.
I've got a question. It's a three-parter.
Oh, Henry.
It has to
Henry.
do with people who are not teachers.
Try a two-part.
Let me start.
Okay, what do you got? There's going to be an uprising for Henry here.
10,000 members of the union. There are about 70,000 teachers. Are the other 40,000 covered in this contract, and in what way? But that's only part of it.
Yes.
The other people who are working.
I thought it was a trick question.
Whose contract expired in 2009. Nurses, pharmacists, various people, are they going to also get that pay? And how much would that cost? And thirdly, speaking of non-teachers, Mr. Steiner.
Let's stay on that one. Just 1 second. Hold on. I'm entertaining your multiple question, but stay on this one. I just want people to know, again, the taxpayers got their money's worth with Bob Lynn because, in fact, this agreement we're discussing now, which took many, many days, many hours, many long days, was one of many different unions and agreements that Bob had to engage. And so he can speak to those other unions that go farther back in terms of what they didn't receive, because he has had to work with the entire municipal labor force over just 4 months' time. Just to give you a sense of, let him speak and then you'll get your next one.
So look, there are
The non-teachers in this agreement and the people who.
So the entire bargaining unit represented by the UFT is covered by this contract. There are a number of other bargaining units that also were in the same situation in terms of not having received the increases that the other 200,000 workers did. 2 of them are in arbitration right now, and we've moved that process to mediation. Others are not yet in that process. We will talk to them, and we will work out settlements there that we hope are fair and reasonable and fit within the structure we're talking about.
Just because we love you, Henry, you get your third question.
But just in regard to those people, how much more money would it cost to back pay their contracts? Should the city agree to that?
So I think I'm not going to answer that because we haven't reached settlement, and that unless you want to bargain for them, but we'll let you know when we reach their settlement.
Very nice of you, Henry.
That was good. That was part 3.
Part 3 refers to Mr.
We are all being held hostage by your 3-part question.
This agreement calls for no raises for 2012 and 2013.
Let's get
I'm sorry, 11 and
Bob.
11 and 12. And in terms of the pattern that you would like to establish, as Mr. Steyer pointed out, are you then going to go to the rest of the city's workers and say, for those 2 years, just as the teachers accepted 0, we're going to...
We're going to put this in our own terms. Thank you for leading the witness, though. We're going to put this in our own terms. Bob first.
Let me start, since I am the one who will have the honor to negotiate with the others. We think that there is 1 year without a wage increase in the settlement, and there is a $1,000 lump sum as a ratification bonus that is instead of that increase. We think that overall it's a fair package, and we hope to be able to extend that to other employees.
Okay. A couple more over here.
Mr. Mayor, can you, just to follow up on that same question about setting the pattern, can you talk about what this means for the other unions, specifically the uniforms, the sanitation workers, the police officers? They have repeatedly said that they would not be willing to contribute to their health care. Today, the PBA announced that they've reached an impasse status. So your talks with them are done for now, and it goes to an arbitrator now. And they've said that they're willing to go all the way to the court to get the deal that they think they deserve. They think that they should be getting a raise. You've offered them no raises. Can you?
Okay, I think it's, I appreciate the recounting, but I think it's simple, and I'll start, Bob will finish. This agreement represents something very productive. It respects the workforce and protects the taxpayers. And the MLC, in short order, will consider it and decide what they think. And that's the next step. Of course, again, the UFT has its own ratification process. So why don't we consider what happens to everybody else after we see what happens with these next few steps, because then I think we'll have a fuller picture. Do you want to add?
Oh, just PBA is not an arbitration. The police will start mediation, and we hope to have constructive discussions with them.
Thank you, Bob. Ms. Furtig.
Thanks. Just a reaction from you and Ms. Farina, please, about specific feedback I'm hearing from principals who say, on the ATR question, first of all, they want to know how long will they have to try out a teacher before they can say no? And second of all, what if they really like the configuration of their school day? Can they apply to have exemptions from this new framework if they don't want to have to reconfigure the school day so they have, you know, an extra 80 minutes on Monday and 35 on Tuesday? Some of them have classes that they extended to be 1 hour instead of 45 minutes, for example, or they have AP classes at the end of the day, and they want to be able to keep those offerings.
Okay, I just will start and then pass to Carmen. Look, again, I think it gets back to the question of values and strategy. What we're trying to do for the entire system is make some changes that we think are broadly necessary system-wide. Carmen can talk about the concept of flexibility, but again, I think the fact is that this agreement represents the kind of changes we think are strategically necessary to move the schools forward. I really want to emphasize, and I know you covered this topic, so you will not be surprised by me saying the status quo is unacceptable. We will not continue with our public schools the way they are. We must greatly, fundamentally improve them. And the actions we're taking are for a pretty thorough reset in terms of public education in this city. So separate from exceptions that might be made, that's what is animating the ideas behind this. Hold on.
Thank you.
There you go.
First of all, there are going to be 3 pre-approved SBOs in terms of time. So principals can choose from any one of those 3. Oh, a school-based option. So that means in terms of time and how to use the time, there are 3 that are pre-approved, one that Michael and I are still going to collaboratively work on.
We got to go talk to the schools and see
Right,
what
right,
they like best.
right. And then, in addition to that, if none of the 3 if principals want to apply, they can come up with other ideas, but then that would have to come to my level to be signed off on. As far as the people who are assigned to schools, 1 day is enough to know whether that's someone that can work with you or not. And we're really happy about that because that's a real difference from the past. So we're excited about all of this.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.